guys, welcome to our new unit on Roman civilization. So this unit can get pretty long, so what we're going to try to do is talk about it by theme. We're going to try to get all of these notes in kind of like in 7 videos, since we're going to focus mostly on rise of Rome, the government, system of law, the empire, and eventually the downfall. So before winter break, what we did, we looked over the first few slides. So we were looking at the size of Rome. So on this map, what we can see in the orange and the green is everywhere that Rome spread to. So we're going to notice that Rome is about 2 times the size of Greece. Okay, so we have to figure out, well, how did Rome, that was very tiny, being the capital of Italy today, how did it get so big? You know, what did they do? What worked? What eventually didn't work? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about in these, hopefully, 7 videos to look at Roman civilization. So what we started with before winter break, we looked at the beginning of Rome. So what we did, we said that once Rome took over Greece, okay, they really envied the Greeks. Okay, so it wasn't that they just wanted to destroy everything there, similar to like what the Spartans did. Okay, what they're going to do is really adopt all of Greek culture. So they adopted, you know, their architecture and their language. They looked over their mythology, okay, their science. Okay, and what they're going to do is simply build upon it. So it's not that it went away, they're going to adopt it and expand it. Okay, and that's what we really did in that activity that we did that Thursday before we went on break. We looked at all the things of Greece, and then how did Rome take it and change it. Okay, so what we talked about before that activity, okay, we were looking at the area of Italy, okay, and how can little old Rome, you know, grow this much? So we said that Italy is a state that's located in, Italy is a country that is located in Europe. We said it was really easy to identify because of the shape of it. It looks like a woman's, you know, high-heeled boot. We know that they have a really nice climate, you know, a hilly location. In that upper picture, we're looking at current-day Rome. Okay, and we said that all of this stuff is going to come together where they can grow food, their population can grow easily, they're going to be able to travel, the mountains are going to protect them. Okay, they have enough water that they can trade and move easily. Okay, so in this picture, we are looking at the current country of Italy. Okay, what this map does not show are the physical features. So if we look up, I'm just going to click these all up there. Okay, so if we look at Italy up towards Milano, right on that upper corner, okay, there's a mountain range that goes east to west right across that northern border called the Alps. Okay, Italy also has a mountain range that runs down the central part of Italy, kind of along that middle part of that boot, and those are called the Apennines. Okay, this is a really hilly area, so when Rome started, they're going to be protected by these hills. Okay, so they're going to be able to develop without a lot of enemies coming in. We also talked about where Rome is located. So the map itself is a little bit deceiving. Okay, so we look at Rome, it kind of looks like it's on the coastline because that star is so big. Okay, Rome is located on a river called the Tiber River. Okay, but it's not on the coastline, it's just up the river a little bit. Okay, and they developed it here because remember, this is the time of those pirate raids. Okay, they traded a lot by the sea, so pirates would, you know, watch the trade routes and eventually would attack. Okay, Rome being up from the coastline, okay, in order to take over Rome or get anything in Rome, the pirates would have to sail up the Tiber River, which was actually quite risky because they were able to protect that pretty well. Okay, now if we look at the beginning of Rome, very similar to Greece, they have a lot of history. Some of their history is full of inaccuracies, kind of to make it more exciting, which brings in like the gods and, you know, the monsters and all of that to kind of make their history more exciting maybe than what it was. Okay, so the beginning of Rome, there are 2 different legends, okay, that Romans believe, and one more factual story. Okay, one of the legends was written by a guy named Virgil, who we're looking at in this statue. Virgil was a man who wrote a book called the Aeneid. Okay, the Aeneid talked all about this guy named Aeneas. Okay, now what we're going to notice is that when Rome started, they're going to adopt a lot of the same stories from Greece. Okay, and then they're going to change minor things. So Greek history and Roman history really like blends because they're going to take the Roman gods and then all of a sudden these gods have kids which then start Rome. So there's a lot of connection between the two. Okay, so the story that Virgil wrote was all about the time after the Trojan War. So in the last unit, we talked about the Trojan War, how the Greeks sailed over with their Trojan horse and left it as a prize and so forth. Okay, after the Trojan War was over, okay, a man named Aeneas, who was from Troy, okay, they left Troy to find a new home because now they were taken over by the Greeks. Okay, in their travels, they're going to settle in a place called Italy, okay, which we know today. Aeneas is going to marry a local king's daughter. Okay, once he marries the local king's daughter, the Trojans and the people of Italy were united and thus Rome started. Okay, because of this legend, Aeneas is considered the father of the Romans. Now, when we have a father of, it simply means like the beginning, the starter, okay, of this area. So that's one legend that the Romans believe, okay, written again by a guy named Virgil. Okay, the other story we actually read about in our activity. Okay, this story is going to talk about two brothers named Romulus and Remus. So we all read this story, so this one should be a little bit of review. Okay, so in this legend, two twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, who were the sons of Rhea and Mars, okay, and Mars was very upset and told them to throw the boys into the river, okay, to die. Okay, but the boys ended up getting into the river, but they floated to safety where they were rescued by a female wolf. Okay, and this female wolf decided to take care of them. Okay, so we can see there's a few flaws in this story. Okay, as time went on, a shepherd and his wife found the boys and they're going to raise them. Okay, as the boys got older, what they wanted to do was create a city by the river that they were saved by. So they're going to build this city together as twin boys because they were so lucky to be alive. Okay, as time went on during this building, as brothers do, they argued, okay, and what they argued about were those typical things that we talk about a lot, okay, they're going to argue over, who's going to lead, and what's the right way, and who has the better decisions, okay, and in these arguments, Romulus and Remus really got heated, and Romulus ends up killing Remus, becoming the leader of the city that he calls Rome after himself. Okay, so if we look at this story, okay, there's, a lot of things that are probably factual, like the Tiber River, but a lot of things that probably didn't happen. But these are legends, okay? Legends have historical fact mixed in with fiction in them. Okay, so if we look at the real beginning of Rome from a historical standpoint, looking back into artifacts and so forth, okay, the beginning of Rome probably started with a group of people called the Latins. Okay, so the Latins were a group of Neolithic people who settled around 5000 BC in this area. Okay, the Latins, okay, settled on a place called the Plain of Latium, which is why they're called the Latins, which is located in central Italy, the middle of Italy. Okay, as time went on, with agriculture and so forth, they were able to start like a really little village. Okay, they had animals, they had crops, they built permanent structures, made out of straw roof huts. Okay, and we really look at the Latins as the mark of the birth of the Roman people. So the Romans eventually, this name came, okay, but they were considered the Latins. Okay. So as time went on, the Latins are going to establish themselves, but we know that all these other areas are growing at the same time. Okay, so we have the Greeks off into the east. Okay, we have another group called the Etruscans off to the north. Okay, and the Latins are kind of in the middle. So what they're going to do is really look around them as things are expanding, and they're going to try to learn from them. Okay, copy different things. Take all the good and then weed out the bad. Okay, so if we look at these Roman influences, the two greatest influences on the Latins, or the Romans as they're now called, are the Greeks and the Etruscans. So we talked all about the Greeks, and we know that the Romans copied a bunch from them. So the Romans learned how to farm with grapes and olives, okay, because that works really well with their climate. They adopted their alphabet and then they built onto it. They also adopted Greek architecture and sculptures and literature. They built onto science. The Greeks were very influential to the Romans. The Etruscans are a new group of people that we haven't talked about yet. Okay, so the Etruscans lived in the area in northern Italy. Okay, so if we look at the Etruscans, Okay, they're going to eventually move south and they take over Rome. This is somewhat common, remember, at the time. The Etruscans were able to take over the Latins or the Romans at this time because the Latins or the Romans were simply just a farming village. They didn't have a large military. So what the Etruscans did, so when they moved in, they took over Rome easily. They didn't like destroy the area. They didn't make all the people slaves. They simply took over the land. Okay, now this area then became ruled by the nobles. So we talked about the nobles before. So the nobles, we typically said, were the wealthy landowners, okay, that is going to run and create laws and so forth of the area. Okay, they devoted themselves to the study of arts. They worked a lot with metallurgy, which is simply the working with metal, like copper and iron, lead, tin, and so forth. Okay, most of their paintings are going to show like their pride in their army because at this time it was really, really strong. Okay, so if we look at what the Romans are going to copy from the Etruscans, probably because they were ruled by them for so long, some of the things that we look at are really the structural items. So the Etruscans were really good with like making of buildings and homes. So they taught these people how to build with brick. They had roofs made out of tile, which is more sturdy than those straw huts that they were used to before. They also created like city streets. They built temples. They had a type of sewer system already in place. So they were really able to learn structurally a lot of things from the Etruscans. One interesting item that they copied was the clothing. Okay, so the Etruscans wore things like cloaks, which are kind of like long dresses that men wore, and togas. Okay, so if you look at a really common one, like Little Caesar's pizza. You know, we have the guy that says pizza, pizza. He always wears like the toga with that sash that goes across his chest. Okay, that started by the Etruscans, and the Romans like latched onto that. And all men wore those, and different colors really meant like different places in society. The Etruscan army, like we mentioned earlier, was quite strong, okay? And the Roman army, once we get started, that's their starting point. They're going to copy the Etruscan army, and then they're going to copy the Greek army, and they're going to try to figure out, you know, how to become more powerful. Okay, now we said that the nobles, okay, were the rulers. Well, eventually the Romans, okay, the Latins and the other people in this area are going to tire of the nobles, okay, because we said the nobles were pretty selfish. Remember, they're going to be like standing on the hill while all the other people do all the work, and they reap all the benefits and don't really have to do anything. Well, we said when people were poor and unhappy, what they're going to do, you know, they're going to rebel, they're going to fight back. So the Romans are going to tire of their rule, okay, and they're going to take over the government. So they're going to overthrow a guy named Tarquin the Proud. Okay, Tarquin the Proud was the last king of the Etruscans. Okay, the Romans are going to come in, overthrow him, okay, and set up a new government. The government they decided to set up was something called a republic. Okay, and we should know this because our government is also a republic. Okay, so it's a form of government in which citizens elect their leaders, and we're going to get into like how this republic works in the next section. Okay, so we'll see you in video number 2.